So we'll kick the meeting off. It's 4:32. And firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we meet on today, the Wiradjuri and Ngunnawal people, and pay my respect to their elders past, present and future. Housekeeping, the staff and the councillor that's in the chambers know the procedure for the emergency exit. The next item is live streaming. As councillors are well aware, meetings are streamed live. And what that means is that when you've got your microphone on, you're speaking, it can be recorded and will be published. And attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate and/or unacceptable behaviour and/or comments. The next item on the agenda is the public forum, and we have a speaker today who wishes to speak on item 12.5, which is 20/256, the water and sewer contribution charges for Templemore Street. And Tahi, I saw you there somewhere. You're there. Hope I got that name right. Yep. So you've got 5 minutes to present your case, and I'll give you a little warning at the 4-minute mark and let you know where you're up to. So welcome, and I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to speak on a statement like we both prepared earlier, if that's okay.
Yep, fine.
Hello, Mr. Mayor and councillors. Thank you for your time this evening. My name is Jessica Temawananui, and I'm the owner of Moore Street Young. I have an approved DA for a 34-lot residential subdivision on this land. In question is one of the 2 ETs that has been supplied to 63 Templemore Street for over 50 years. In 2016, when the DA was approved, I made it clear to Lara, how do you say it, Lassa? Swaga, that my intention to use both ETs within the subdivision, and I was paying for the ETs, then I could apply to relocate meter services when I was ready to use them. I also had an on-site meeting with Menno in 2018 regarding the use of both ETs, and neither council members told me that at any stage only one ET could be used in the subdivision. In November 2020, after an on-site meeting, I received an email from him stating that only one ET could be used for relocation and credit, and that the second ET had to be disconnected at my cost by council. I found this unfair due to information I had relied on from previous meetings with council, and so I arranged a series of meetings to review. I had also continued to pay $308 a year for a second service that I was not using. Out of these meetings, council has determined 2 points. The second ET was not paid for, so it could not be used. And council has referred to section 2.2 of the Young Shire Council Development Servicing Plans for Water and Sewerage 2016, stating that the second ET is due to change of use. Mr. Mayor, both ETs have supplied 63 Templemore Street for over 50 years. On recent meetings with council regarding the ETs, they have told me that the ET in question, the stables meter, has never been paid for, so this is the reason why it cannot be used inside the subdivision. Yet both ETs have supplied the same property for the same amount of time, and council are accepting the valid ET suitable for relocation and credit, and the other is not valid, and I'm required to pay council to have it removed. Fees have been paid for both services in the way of council charges for over the past 50 years. Council have also referred to section 2.2 of the Young Shire Council Development Servicing Plans for Water and Sewerage 2016, stating that the second ET cannot be used due to change of use. I would like to address the fact that the land was rezoned by council prior to me purchasing it in 2014. The land was changed from rural residential to residential only, forming a change of use prior to my purchase. Therefore, my purchase in 2014 was land with 2 council-paid ETs. I am asking today, Mr. Mayor and councillors, that both ETs can be used within the subdivision, as I purchased the residential land with 2 council-paid ETs, and our rates notice reflects this. There is an additional 31 ETs that I acknowledge my ability to pay 2.2, the water policy. These will be ETs to serve the remaining lots. Thank you for your time.
I might just ask you just to go back over the last little bit. The audio went really funny, and we had a job to understand your last little bit about the 31 lots.
So if there is an additional ETs that I acknowledge are our responsibility and will be in accordance with section 2.2 of the water and sewerage policy. These will all be new ETs to service the remaining lots.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't on. Thank you for that. Okay, councillors, the next item on our agenda is the apologies and leave of absence, and we have apologies from Councillor Rolls and a leave of absence from been handed in from Councillor Wallace, and we have a notice of late attendance by Councillor Stadmiller. Would someone like to move that we accept those, please? Move Councillor Armstrong, seconded Councillor O'Connor. Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. That which brings us to the expressions of sympathy. So be upstanding, please. We have a moment of silence for the passing of the following: Murray Brown, Maxine Schaefer, Colin Edgar, and Paul Keogh. Thank you, everybody. Takes me through to the confirmation of the minutes of the last Hilltops Council Ordinary meeting held on the 25th of November. Do I have a mover and a seconder of those minutes? Move Councillor Horton, seconded Councillor Manchester. Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. It's unanimous. Thanks, councillors. Takes me over to disclosures of interest. Does anyone have any disclosures of interest? Councillor O'Connor.
I have a non-pecuniary, non-significant interest in item 254. And as such, I'll just vote as normal.
Councillor Manchester.
Yeah, I have a pecuniary interest in item 20-266.
Thank you. Any other disclosures? No. Thank you, councillors. It takes me to mayoral minutes. None of those. Mayoral report. My diary is there, councillors. I think it covers off just about everything I've done. If there's any questions or not, I'd ask that be accepted, please. Councillor Armstrong, thank you. Councillor Flannery, thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. Takes me over to councillors' reports, and I have some that have been handed in by Councillor Armstrong, Councillor Horton, Councillor O'Connor, and Councillor Rolls. So I'll go to Councillor Walker.
Meetings as minuted.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Flannery.
Meetings as minuted.
Thank you. Councillor Tuckerman.
Yes, councillor briefing on the 9th and today's meeting. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Manchester.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Traffic Committee on the 2nd of December and the council workshop on rate harmonisation on the 8th of December and today's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Is any of the councillors who provided their written reports like to speak on anything that was in those reports, or take them as they are? Thank you, councillors. Okay, can I have a move and a second of those reports? Councillor Manchester and Councillor Flannery, thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. It takes me to the Community Recognition Scheme. Do we have any nominations for community recognition today? No, we don't. So that normally brings us to the General Manager's report, but as is our practice, we had a speaker in public forum, so I'd like to have a move in a second to bring item 12.520/256 forward, please. Moved Councillor Walker, seconded Councillor Manchester. All those in favour? Thank you, councillors. We'll go to item 2256 on page, not sure. Thank you. Okay, councillors, it's the water and sewer contribution charges, 63 Templemore Street subdivision. There's a report there by staff and a recommendation. I have a move and a second to get us started on this item. Move Councillor Horton, seconded Councillor Armstrong. Thank you. Do we have any questions in regard to this item from the floor to staff before I? Councillor Manchester.
Yeah, just a question. The presentation by the applicant says that they've been paying the water connection fee for the two subdivisions, or the possible two entitlements, over their period of time of 80 in the block. I'm just wondering if that is correct, that they have been paying two entitlements.
Director would like to take that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct.
Thank you. Councillor Armstrong, was that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Just in regard to, just following up on that, the two minimum charges, I gather that the applicant is discussed in the open forum. Were they for the same allotment, or were they for different allotments? And in regard to the change of zoning, was there also a change of use associated with that, given that my understanding is that the fee is due on a change of use rather than zoning? It's possible to have a big paddock with a horse in it in land zoned residential, or a big paddock with a horse in it in land zoned rural residential. So if I can just have some clarification on those two matters.
Who'd like to take that question on?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillors, the two services that are being provided for is an availability charge. So if there is water available to a lot, then they pay an availability charge, and that was the $308 that was alluded to in the presentation by the in the public forum.
Thank you for that. Okay, councillors would.
Mr. Mayor, just if I can, just in that regard, I'm quite well aware, and I'm certain that councillors are, that the availability charge is what the applicant's discussing. But I'm actually talking, if there were two physical connections, water connections to the one allotment, or whether there were two allotments concerned with a connection to each, because there's a significant difference between one allotment with two connections and one allotment with one connection plus one allotment with one connection. So can I just have some clarification? Are we talking about one piece of land with two connections, or are we talking about two separate pieces of land with a connection each?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the lot that is under the subdivision for the DA is one lot. It has an existing dwelling, and then there was an old stable lot further down in the area, and the connection for the sewer and water was to the stable, and there is a water connection to the existing dwelling. So there is one ET and sewer connection going to be applied to the dwelling. So the only payment that's not being changed, because there is a change of use to that connection, is that old stable block, which has now been demolished. So there's potentially no existing use rights over that land anyway for the repurpose of that water.
Was that a separate lot?
For this subdivision, I believe that historically it may have been two lots and consolidated into one lot at that time where the two ETs were continued. But as the stable block existed, it remained that the water remained with the sewer, so there was no repurposing of that when it was consolidated.
How many connections are allowable, permissible per single allotment?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. Could I just have a bit more clarification with that question there, Councillor Armstrong?
Certainly, if in the applicant's case we have an allotment that has a dwelling on it, and from what you've told me, a separate allotment with a stable on it. Now, is it possible to have two water connections to each of these allotments, or is it only possible to have a single connection to each of these allotments? And if it is possible to have multiple connections, are there multiple minimums charged?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can probably answer one part of that question, which is that currently there is only one lot that is being considered for the subdivision, and it has two water services. And that's where the rates come in. They've been paying rates for the actual service and usage of the water, although they haven't actually been using the additional usage charges. As I understand, it's the access is what they've been paying under their rates. And that's the combined now one lot. So we're only talking about one lot, and it's been subdivided, but there has been two access points to water, one being the existing dwelling house and one being the former stable block, which has now been dismantled.
Thank you. We've established that. I've got one more question, if I can, please. Councillors, if you just bear, given that we've established now that there's two connections to one allotment, those connections would have been made by council, I would imagine, in which case a tapping fee and a charge would have been levied by council. Is that not the case?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is the case. That these are tapping fees. These connections are connected directly to a water main, and that is what you pay the connection fee for. And because you have mentioned earlier the availability of the water, you are charged actually to have the availability of the water. The usage charge is a different charge, which I'm sure everybody is aware of, but it's because there are two separate services servicing that lot.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Sorry, Councillor Armstrong.
If I may,
Councillor Walker.
If I may, further to that, then, to that statement, when did it change from multiple lots, which we're told it was an availability charge that was charged? Availability charge must be to an allotment, so there must have at some time been multiple lots and changed to one lot. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there were, as I understand, there were two lots and they were consolidated into the one lot, and now there's a DA over the whole land for the subdivision of 34 lots. However, they've asked for a staged subdivision, which is the existing dwelling and the residual land, and two new lots. And it's the definition within 2.2 of the plan that refers to new development, and that's where we're sort of saying that these two new developments require two new connection points. You can't transfer or relocate you can't relocate a service for repurpose, which is a stable to a dwelling, so it would be not applicable there, or from a stable or for a residual lot to a new development. So that's where we're sort of saying within the plan, council staff have looked at the plan and realised that the stable block cannot be considered, the relocation of that service cannot be considered because it is new development and a new repurpose of a development lot.
Thank you, Councillor Manchester.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I would have assumed that over the years, if they have been paying a water connection entitlement there on the two entitlements, one each entitlement. The original owner would have paid a possible headworks charge if it was existent back in those times when it was connected. It sounds like it was connected by Shire. The water entitlement, I'd imagine, should remain with the block. Whether because it's been now consolidated in, it was two entitlements. Now it's been consolidated into one. That the secondary water entitlement should still stay there.
Thank you for that, Councillor Manchester. Did staff want to reply to that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, at the time of the establishment of these two lots, headwork charges were not applied because headwork charges came in afterwards, the former Young Shire Council, and that's according to records we have available to us. There's nothing else on record, and that's reflected in the business paper that indicates that there were any headwork charges applied to those two services.
And that would probably be the case because back 50 years ago, the headworks charge didn't come into existence. It's probably only about 30 years ago, but I still believe that they've been paying the entitlement each year for 50 years, and the current owner for 6 years should be entitled to that entitlement.
Councillor Flannery, did you have a question, Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is there a reason why they can't be repurposed?
It's for the change of use, and as noted in the report, it's council staff are only guided by an adopted plan or policy. We can only enforce that, and that's why the report is up to council today. If there's a deviation from that policy and plan, then that is why we're seeking the recommendation from council and direction from councillors.
Council are recommending that it not be adopted, the repurposing, and I tend to agree with Councillor Manchester.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, we've got a fair discussion question, but the mover or the seconder would like to speak for the recommendation.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, thank you. This is a difficult one, but we have professional staff who have done all the work, and these professional staff have put forward the recommendation, and that's why I support that recommendation. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Horton. I'll ask, would any councillor like to speak against the recommendation? No. Oh, Councillor Flannery, put his hand up.
Oh, look, Mr. Mayor, I just think if there's a history of the residents paying for two water allocations and they've had the benefit of a council policy that it's so rigid that it doesn't repurpose it, I think doesn't achieve much.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone else like to speak for the recommendation? Not at this point. Okay, that being the case.
Mr. Mayor, just some clarity on if this motion is lost, do we have to foreshadow another motion?
General Manager.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. You're absolutely right, Councillor Tuckerman. At the bottom of page 47, in the advent that councillors took a different view from the recommendation of staff, we have provided what would be a recommendation that could be utilised to give effect to the, the waiving of the charges in this case. So should councillors believe that an exemption is warranted, which is, as I said, is not the advice of council officers, then council would apply section 64 and sewer contributions to all newly created residential lots in 2016, etc. So the foreshadowed motion would read that council and then would apply, etc. From A, B, C going from points 1 to 4. And that covers the legal aspect of what may be the foreshadowed motion that you would like to consider.
Thank you. I'd like to foreshadow that motion, please.
So we have a foreshadowed motion by Councillor Tuckerman, which I gather is A, B and C on the bottom of page A, B and C and dot points on C on the bottom of page 47, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Well, we deal with the motion one at a time that we've got in front of us first. So the recommendation that's put there by council staff, all those in favour of those recommendations, could you raise your hand, please? Okay. Those against? That recommendation is lost. We now go to the foreshadowed motion. Councillor Tucker, would you like to speak to your foreshadow? We need a seconder for the foreshadowed motion.
I'll reserve my right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Armstrong. I'll put the foreshadowed motion. All those in favour? 2 or 6. Those against? That foreshadowed motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. We'll now go back to the General Manager's report. And I'll hand over to the General Manager. The cash investment report is there for councillors and a recommendation. We'll move Councillor Manchester, seconded. Councillor Armstrong, thank you. Any questions in regard to that report? If not, I'll put it. All those in favour? Thank you, councillors. Item 2253, outstanding rates and charges and sundry debtors report. There's a report there and a recommendation to receive and note the report, councillors. Moved by Councillor Walker, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Manchester, thank you. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Takes me to item 2254, development application statistics for November 2020. A report said councillors and a recommendation that we receive the status of the reports. Move Councillor Armstrong. Seconded Councillor Tuckerman. Thank you. Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you, councillors.
Mr. Mayor, just a question in regard. Sorry, just in regard to on page number 31, we've got quite a few. Sorry.
There you go.
We've got quite a few of these DAs in here that have got that have had stopped the clocks for more than a year. I think it's about time that we got some further and better details on any DA that has stopped the clock for a year or more. Clearly, they either need to be determined as refused or they need to be reinvigorated.
Thank you for that comment, councillor. We have dealt with that item and voted on it, so we'll move on. But I'm sure staff will take.
Mr. Mayor, I wasn't given the opportunity to speak about that matter.
Sorry, councillor, I didn't see your hand up. I apologise.
I did second it, and all I'm asking is that council can get some information back about these DAs that have had stopped the clocks for more than a year.
Director of Planning, like to respond to that then. Thank you.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. We've sent out letters as of this week, actually, to all the long outstanding stop the clock. So to give them a time frame where we're seeking the additional information. We will be giving a briefing to councillors in February about the stop the clock motions. Some of these stop the clocks have been resolved by council, so they will need to be reported back to councillors for determination as well. So that's why we're sending out stop the clock letters, and we'll have a briefing to councillors in February. The inclusion of additional information within a council report such as this could be considered commercial in confidence as to why they're on stop the clock or why additional information is required. So that's why we will be bringing it to a councillor briefing in February.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. And again, my apologies, Councillor Armstrong, for not noticing the question.
Understandable, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, could I request that it come to confidential in council? I'm not that keen on this information coming to a council briefing. I think it should be in a confidential report in the council meeting.
I've been told by staff that that will be able to be done, Councillor Flannery, so that's taken on board. Thank you. We'll go to item 2255, the modification to stage the approved 17 residential lot subdivision. There's a report to councillors and a recommendation. It's moved by.
Move the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Seconded by.
Seconded.
Councillor Horton. Thank you. Would the mover or the seconder like to speak to the recommendation?
Mr. Mayor, this is appears to be a rather simple administrative adjustment. I can't see a lot 18 on there, yet there's reference to it. So I suppose that we need to adjust that the record so as that we don't refer to something that doesn't exist.
Thank you for that, Councillor. Would anyone like to speak against the recommendation? That's a no. That being the case, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Item 2256, we've dealt with. Item 2257, the works report. There's a report there, councillors, and a recommendation. Have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation, please. Councillor Manchester and Councillor Armstrong. Seconded. Thank you. Any questions or speak to the report? The mover or seconder?
Mr. Mayor, yes, I'd like to convey through the General Manager to the Director of Operations and her staff my most sincere thanks and congratulations on the excellent effort that's been done by the Parks and Gardens staff in grooming the main streets of the three larger towns. Even though we've been struck down by COVID and haven't had the ability to run the various festivals, our staff have put in what I believe to be a stellar effort in bringing the main streets up to an absolutely tip-top standard, and that is evidenced by the incredible visitor numbers that we're seeing in the area in the last 3 weeks or so. So thank you very much, and my most hearty congratulations.
Hear, hear.
Thank you for that, Councillor Armstrong, and I'm sure the directors will pass that on to their staff. Any other questions in regard to the report before I put it? No? Okay, I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour? Thank you, council. That's unanimous. Sorry, my microphone. Item 2258, the action summary report. There's a report there, councillors, and a recommendation that we note the action plan. I have a mover and a seconder. Move, Councillor Horton. Seconded. I get a seconder. Councillor Walker, thank you. Okay, so I have a mover and a seconder. Any questions in regard to that? Councillor Flannery?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I am sick to death of asking when are we going to get a report on the Gaylong Road costings and what is being done with the VPA. Over a year at least I've been asking for this.
General Manager?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there was, at page 56, there was a costing update on the project estimate for Gaylong Road as part of the works report.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, yes, it was totally unsatisfactory. We are talking about $5 to $7 million of expenditure and we get a line or two on a works report. I think I made it pretty clear we should be getting a detailed report back upon which the VPA can be calculated. Now, this is a local road for which we do not get 1 cent of government funding for. So council for the next 20 to 40 years will be footing the bill for 200,000 tonnes of lime going down it, and we can't be bothered doing a detailed report to make sure we've got our costings right so that ratepayers are not funding this, so that we can get a VPA determined. It is absolutely hopeless.
I take your comments on board, and there was a request to have funding double checked, and I agreed with you, and I still agree that we need to make sure we have the costings correct. And the
It's little wonder we are so out in our budget.
The costings came back and they were provided, and they're provided on that page 56. If we require more in-depth and detail of where those costs come from and how they were got to that number, I imagine we can ask for that and that can be provided to us. I would like to think that they weren't just dreamt up numbers, they were worked on and are close to the mark as they can be. So I'm happy enough to agree with Councillor Flannery that if they can be more detailed in their costings to come back to us to get to that $5.984 million, I'm happy to see that as well, Councillor Flannery. So
they do not sit with the information we receive through the very few meetings we've had with the Asset Management Committee on what it costs for a pavement refurbishment.
Okay, so your point's taken, and we'll have staff look at that through the General Manager and request that we get those costings checked and a bit more detailed costing provided to councillors so that we can have some security and safety around those numbers. And I'll leave that in the General Manager's hands. Councillor Tuckerman.
Mr Mayor, can I suggest to Councillor Flannery that he move a motion?
Happy to do that. Mr Mayor, I'm happy to move the motion that we get a detailed report on the costings for the Gaylong Road upgrade to form the basis of the VPA calculations for council and the Gaylong mine owners.
Okay, we're just making sure we get that down to where it is. Just bear with us, councillors, till we get that documented. Okay, councillors, I think staff have got that ready to put on the screen, and we'll just get Councillor Flannery just to check that when it comes up, please. Councillor Flannery, would you like to change some wording in that? I don't believe that was
a detailed report on the cost. Detailed report on the cost of the Gaylong Road upgrade. So on the cost to be used as the basis of the VPA negotiations with the mine owners. And I would like to add, including lifetime depreciation costs. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. Okay, do we have a seconder to the motion from the floor? Seconded by Councillor Manchester. Okay, I'll put the recommendation there that also includes the motion from the floor. All those in favour? Oh, I just can't see the screen, but I can't see the screen, councillors. There we go. It's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. That takes me to item 2259. Welcome, Councillor Stadmiller's with us now. I think. Afternoon, councillor. We're up to the correspondence for information.
Thank you.
We received your apology for indicating you may be late, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
Media releases and Office of Local Government circulars, and the recommendation is there, councillors. Moved, Councillor Armstrong. Seconded, Councillor Stadmiller. Thank you. All those in favour? Again, thank you, councillors. Item 2260 is committee reports requiring action, and the first one is 2260, the Hilltops Community Wellbeing Group, Section 355 Committee. And there's a report there and a recommendation there, councillors, that goes with it. Moved, Councillor O'Connor. Seconded, Councillor Manchester. There's no questions. I'll put that. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Takes me through to 2261, Hilltops Council Traffic Advisory Committee reports. And there's a recommendation there, councillors. Do I have a mover or a seconder for the report? Moved, Councillor Walker. Seconded, Councillor Manchester. Thank you. I'm not too sure if anyone else has got any questions in regard to this report, but I do have some questions for the chair or members of the Hilltops Council Local Traffic report. The first one, I'll take it to page 85. The report from Greg Minahan, about halfway down the page, and it is the one that refers to Millvale Road speed limit review assessment. And I read that and I thought, oh, this is good. This is about when we asked to see if we could extend the 80k speed limit out on the Millvale Road. But when I read the next line, I realised that it wasn't. It is actually about moving the 50k sign from the split at the veterinary clinic out to where the 100 kilometre sign is now at Browns Lane. As a result of the speed zone review assessment, the existing 50k speed limit shall be extended to the west from the vet clinic in Borough Street to the commencement of the 100k on the west side of Browns Lane. So that's okay. So I don't know, councillors, if any other councillors been for a drive or knows that road that well. I happen to know it that well. But, what's been indicated here is there's a couple of issues. For me, the question I'm asking is, not so long ago we were taking the 80k speed limit zones further from town on the Burrawa side of town when it was requested, and that was agreed to by everyone. Subject to talking to this afterwards, I'll talk about the 80k's the other side. But when you look at where this is proposed, there's two issues I have. RMS and Transport New South Wales are telling us now that we're going to go without transitional zones and we go straight from 100 kilometres back to 50 kilometres in one hit. If that's the case, I'm not too sure if I could agree with that, but this particular spot they're talking about is 87 metres over a blind hill, coming down over the top of it at 100 k's. Then they want to put a speed limit sign up that says 50 k's. I cannot follow the rationale or the understanding of how anyone could come to that arrangement. The fact that moving the 50k sign from where the vet is out to that area, that is another matter that I need someone to explain that rationale to me. I know I've only been here 20 years and drove that road considerably times, any number of times on any day, and I've never seen a pedestrian out there yet, so it can't be because of pedestrian use. Why you'd want to take a 50-kilometre zone that far out, I don't know. I wasn't around when that was asked about, but I have trouble with that. Maybe the chair can explain that to me. And also, I've had a briefing today up to date with the extension of the 80k's further out on Millvale Road, to be told that at the moment they're saying no. So there's a few issues to be looked at there. But to the chair of that committee, could you explain to me the rationale behind moving the 50k sign way out there in the first place and why you would put it from 100k back to 50k over the crest of the hill?
Thank you, Mr.
Yeah, I'm answering. I'll hand over to Councillor Manchester directly because he chaired this particular meeting, but I will say 3 points of note on this one. The first of all, this is advised by RMS who are do this same sort of action around the state, and so it's their expertise that we take advice from. The second point, with a sudden decrease to, as you put it, to a 50 kilometre zone, there's always, without exception, a warning sign that sign is coming up. And the third point I would make would be that this is an area of proposed development, and so this would be taking into account the types of anticipated development that is taking place. But I'll hand over to Councillor Manchester for further comment.
Just before I call in Councillor Manchester, then I might need some explaining. So the Traffic Advisory Committee don't discuss these matters with the representative, Mr. Moynihan, and you mentioned you weren't at that meeting. So this wasn't discussed before this meeting. This was just brought to the Traffic Committee on that day and lobbed on that day, and you were told that this is what's going to happen. Is that how it works, Councillor Manchester? Or had this been spoken about by the Traffic Committee before?
As far as the 60 to 50 Ks, wasn't, to my memory, it wasn't discussed. The representative from the RMS did discuss that across the state they're doing away with these intermediary signs or speed limits like the 60s and 80s. And the road review with the Millvale Road, the speed review that they did do for the 80 K being moved out to, I think it was initially mooted as being out near the gas line terminal, out, I can't think of the creek, but out past the racecourse out there anyhow. But they came back to say that wasn't justifiable and that the 100 Ks would remain there. And then they mentioned at the meeting that the 60 Ks would become the new 50 Ks from Browns Lane into town. And that had a lot to do with the fact of the development and the roadworks that we're doing there and making that into an unhitching and hitching area for truck traffic. And that was a part of the reason behind, or rationale behind, bringing it back down to 50 Ks. I did raise about a similar situation in Harden where it's 100 Ks and then a 50 K straight away. And I'd had a few complaints from some residents about that. And that was the same rationale from the RMS, and it is their roads, and they're doing away with and not encouraging the use of intermediary zones before the 50 Ks or 60 Ks limit. And that's the same case in this case. It had one to do with the development, and the second one, and point that Councillor Walker made, is there will be an advisory sign on the other side of the crest of the hill, and that will advise that it will be coming down to, there will be a 50 K sign ahead.
Thank you for that, Councillor. I'm still gobsmacked, and it would really be a worthwhile thing if any councillors are close by just to go and have a look at what I mentioned about that 100 Ks over the top of the hill into 50 Ks. And if that's the case with our transport body advocating and advising those things, I have some concerns. My next question would be, so I understand it's their road and their decision. So he comes to this meeting and he says, this is what we're going to do. This wasn't asked or brought up by anyone on Hilltops Council. Is that my understanding, that they come to town and said, we're going to do this with your road? So no one suggested or asked for it?
As far as the 50 Ks, I said no. The report did go to them about the 80 Ks a number of months ago. I can't think how long ago, but it'd be 6 or 8 months ago when it first went up. They did the assessment of the 80 K zone, but the fifth from 60 to 50, 60 down to 50 was brought up at the meeting on the 3rd of December, I think it was.
When you say it was brought up by them or by us?
By the RMS.
Thank you. Councillor Flannery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I could suggest that you could talk to a brick wall and you might achieve more, but in the absence of making that comment, I do suggest that we actually formally write to RMS and request that council be included in another review of the speed zones out there. Also, some gravel and some asphalt along the verges of that road wouldn't go astray if they're going to change the speed zone, because it's in desperate need of a bit of an upgrade. It's very rough as you exit and stones are constantly flown up. Would you like a motion, Mr Mayor, that we make representations to RMS, or do you think it's within the remit of you and the General Manager to write to them?
Well, I can take care of that. I've already spoke to our state member today in regard to the matter. It's quite got me offside because I think it's, I know I can be a bit bullish at times, but this is just, I've seen some silly things, but like from the intelligent people that look after the road network, I can't believe what I saw today and what I've read. So I've spoken to the state member and we will take it up further. Councillor Armstrong. Sorry, Councillor Flannery, didn't mean to cut you off.
The change in speed from 60 to 50 for about 5 k's through Hardens also caused a lot of grief to many of the residents. It's whilst there might in Murrumborough where there's traffic around the business district, it might be warranted, but for 4 k's or so, it's certainly a pain in the backside.
Mr Mayor,
Armstrong was next, I think. Yep.
Mr Mayor, what concerns me, if this is to be the course that the Transport for New South Wales and RMS are going to take, then we have any number of 80k zones that potentially have the likelihood of turning into 50k zones. If the transitional zones are going to disappear, i.e. you'll go from 100k's to 50k's, then there will be a huge number of these areas within Hilltops that are going to be impacted by it. I wholeheartedly support Councillor Flannery's suggestion that we seek an exemption from this, or at least seek a review of it, because I think that it's actually retrograde as far as the community is concerned.
Thank you, Councillor, and we will make written correspondence as well as verbal correspondence with the people, and I'm made aware that the local state member is meeting with this gentleman on Friday, and the matter will be raised there, and it will be also raised from a council level. Councillor Walker.
Yeah, I think it needs to be clarified. The reason for this change was from an initiation of council to ask for a review of that, and this is the result of that review as requested.
My question earlier on was in regard to that. Who requested that we go back to 50k's all the way out there? Because it must have been before my time, because I cannot remember or find anywhere where it was requested. The only requested was to extend the 80k's out. So that was my question earlier about, was this brought up by someone from council to this committee, or as Councillor Manchester explained to me, no, it wasn't. It was brought by Mr Moynihan and he brought it to council to say they were going to do this. I can't follow the rationale or the process, but we will find out about it. I don't want to drag on about it. I've said enough about it. It just doesn't add up with me today at all, on any shape or form. Councillor Walker.
I'll say again, this was in response to a request from council to review this. The RMS has reviewed it, and this is the result of it.
And then I'll call for a copy of the request from council. Thank you, Councillor Walker, for that. So unless anyone else has got any other comments in regard to that page, we will take up further action and seek further confirmation, Councillor Flannery, in regard to how this came about, and probably express our concerns in regard to that matter, given that not so long ago, just recently, the section on the end of town heading towards Burrawa, an area known by a lot of us, the 80k zone was lengthened not all that long ago. So now you tell me they're doing away with them. Sorry, I've said enough. I'll put that report. All those in favour? Again, thank you, councillors. Item 2262, committee reports requiring no action. Have a move in a second to accept those, please. Councillor Flannery moved, second by Councillor Stadmill. Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you, councillors. Takes me to page 107, questions with notice, which were nil. Notice of motion nil. Brings us to matters of confidentiality. Could I please have someone move us into confidential to move Councillor Tuckman? Thank you. Seconded Councillor Armstrong. All those in favour? Thank you, councillors. Thank you. So the resolution of council enclosed for the awarding of the contract of the winning and crushing gravel. And the contract was awarded and delegated authority to the General Manager to execute all necessary documentation associated with the awarding of that contract. The second matter that was endorsed by Council was in relation to the BUNDARBO Bridge Replacement Program, purchase of land, and the recommendation is that Council endorse the purchase of that land from the Crown and private owners, and delegate the General Manager to the authority to execute all documentation on behalf of Council. Was item 2265, and the last item tonight was item 2266 in regard to Build the Bastard project update, and Council have resolved to receive the report and rescind previous resolutions and acknowledge that following payment of the remaining budget to the Harden Regional Development Corporation, and that Council's involvement with Build the Bastard statue project will cease at that point. So they were the resolutions passed in closed council. So again, thank you everyone out there into our community and all the volunteers who've done all the hard work during the year with COVID. We appreciate your assistance with helping Council out, and we wish everyone a merry and safe and happy Christmas. So thank you all.